This is the Runt for 2012. This is a 5'4", 19 3/4, 2 5/8. This is the smallest board that I make. I actually only make certain sizes, 5'0" up to 5'6". I know a lot of the other guys that ride bigger boards, they want it in a 6'0" and 5'11" or 5'10". It really stretches out the curve of the board if I go that big, so you can go a little bit thicker. I've got guys that are 200 pounds that are riding this board at 5'6". So I make them 5'0" to 5'6" in that range. They're standard with the quad setup. Never been a big fan of quads, but what I've done is actually I've changed the traditional way of setting up the quad. Everything's a little bit closer in. Boards are a little bit looser. This is really 2 inches off the rail here, and we can get into all the numbers, but basically this is a great board for, you know, waist high to head high waves. It doesn't work that well in knee high and just kind of a small day out there with no power. This board needs some push to the waves. It's got a great curve on this board. Comes standard in a swallowtail. It's really wide, up at 12 inches, and then it's kind of pulled in back here. But the key to this board, being so small, is really in this nose area right here. I put a lot of volume under your chest, and that's going to give you paddling power. It's still extremely wide at the nose. It's 19 3/4 at the center. That center's slightly pushed forward. The tail is still really wide as well, 15-inch range. The rails on it are really not boxy, but full. And the tuck under edge, what this is, I've tucked this under and rolled this under a little bit more to make the board feel a little softer, if you will. So there's not a hard edge on there, only really back in this area. This board is phenomenal in chest high waves with some power. It's extremely loose. Very, very happy with this board. And again, if you're a big guy, you know, I'm 5'11", 165 to 170 pounds. I ride them 5'3", 2 5/8 inches thick, which is very, very thick for me. My typical board, thickness-wise, is anywhere from 2 1/8 to 2 1/4. But to make up for the length of it, really, I wanted some fuller rails on the board for float. But this is the key. It's actually just right under here, right under your chest, where you're gonna get the paddling power. You can catch waves all day long on this board. So don't be afraid to drop down to a 5'0", 5'2", 5'3", 5'5", 5'6", but I do not make them any bigger than 5'6", because that starts to stretch out this curve. If I made this a 6'0", this curve right here would be so long and look like a cigar almost. So really, by keeping it small, it keeps that curve in the board. So don't be afraid to go short with this board. I have set it up as a 5-fin, but when you do that, you're either getting a traditional quad or you're going to get a traditional tri-fin setup. So ride it as a quad. Even if you've had boards in the past and you're not a big fan, I've moved everything in so it really fits this board extremely well. Also on this board, one of the key factors that makes it work so well is there's just a real subtle single concave right under your front foot area, and then it's a very deep double concave right here. That's going to allow water to move through and really accelerate you up and out on your bottom turns, and that's really, you know, those wide and set up big bottom turns are going to allow you to do those maneuvers. You know, if you have a weak bottom turn, you know, you're going to go off the top. You know, it's not going to be a big maneuver. You know, really going wide, accelerating up and out, and laying down those huge arcing S-turns. This double concave is going to allow you that water to move through. The V out on the tail is going to allow you to go a little bit more rail to rail. And speaking of V, I'd recommend, you know, the bigger guys that are 6'0", 6'3", 200 pounds. You know, anybody that's a big guy is always get a V out on the tail, just a little bit, you know, about 3 inches, 3.5 inches up, and then kind of taper it out on the V if you're going to go to a little bit bigger board. Those guys have power. They're really, really big. They're powerful, and that V is going to allow them to really just move it rail to rail a lot easier. But on this small board, real subtle V out the tail, deep double concave. Man, this board flies. So I'd highly recommend picking one of these up. Again, this is the Runt for 2012.